We are diving straight into new research that's really redefining how we measure what frontier AI models can do on tasks that actually matter to, everyday users. This is our breakdown of the AI Consumer Index, or ACE, from Benchek, Shetty, Hunsberger, and the team at Mercer.
Yeah, ACE is a really critical piece of work. It's the first benchmark that focuses entirely on assessing LLMs on these high-value consumer domains: shopping, food, gaming, and DIY. It's a big pivot from the usual abstract reasoning tests.
And the methodology is what makes this so powerful. They've brought in two key ideas: these mandatory hurdle criteria, which means if you fail the core task, your score is just zero, and dynamically checking if the answers are actually grounded in real web sources.
And that grounding check is backed up by this brutal penalty.
Yeah.
If a model hallucinates a fact, say a price or a link, it gets a score of -1 for that criterion.
Wow, -1.
It's aggressive, and it's designed to stop what we call reward hacking, where a model just learns to look helpful without actually giving you a correct usable answer.
So the headline result is this huge gap, right? The gap between what we think these models can do and what they can actually do for us. Even the top model, GPT-5 High, only scored 56.1% overall. And that performance is all over the place. It hits 70% in food, but then crashes down to just 45% in shopping.
It really confirms that consumer reliability is far from a solved problem.
So let's get into why a benchmark like this is so urgently needed right now. It really comes down to scale, doesn't it?
It's all about scale. We are way past the early adopter phase. The paper points to a report showing 61% of American adults had used AI in the last 6 months.
And that growth curve is just breathtaking, the raw numbers. Daily ChatGPT messages went up 5-fold in a single year, from around 450 million to over 2.6 billion.
And most of that is consumers. Non-work messages make up almost 3/4 of that traffic, so you have this explosion in use.
But not necessarily in trust.
Exactly. People are using it, but they're wary. And the old benchmarks, the ones that test, coding ability or abstract knowledge, they're useful for R&D, but they don't tell you the one thing a consumer needs to know.
Which is, can I trust this?
Can I trust it? If a model can write amazing code but gives me a fake price for a TV, it's not just useless to me as a consumer, it's actually harmful.
And that is where ACE really plants its flag. The whole mission is to see if these models can handle these high-stakes, everyday needs. It's about moving from just retrieving knowledge to providing something actionable.
To do that, they built out this really rigorous data set. You've got the ACE V1 Hellout set, which is their hidden test set. 400 cases, 100 for each domain. That's what they use for the main leaderboard.
And for our audience, the really important part is they also open source the dev set, right?
That's right. ACE V1 Dev. It has 80 cases, so 20 per domain, and it's under a CC BY license. So researchers can actually start building on this and, trying to optimize models for this kind of reliability.
The quality of the questions themselves seems really high.
Oh, absolutely. They brought in 47 subject matter experts. We're talking professional chefs, tradespeople, personal shoppers, game developers. The tasks they created aren't just trivia questions. They reflect the real messy constraints of what consumers actually do.
Okay, so let's get into the methodology. This is where it gets really interesting, especially with how they design the prompts. It's so much more than a simple instruction. They use these detailed personas.
The persona is everything. It's the whole context.
Yeah.
I mean, take their example. A 30-year-old from Halifax with an $800 budget buying a gaming laptop for his brother who is obsessed with a very specific game.
Total War. Warhammer 2, I think it was?
Right, so the model has to juggle the location, the budget, the recipient's niche interest, and the technical specs of the game. A simple prompt would just completely miss all that nuance.
But even with that, they found that the early prompts weren't quite working. The models were still missing these implied things the user expected.
Yeah, that's a great point. To make it fair and to really align the test with what a user actually wants, they started appending a short, customized bit of text to every single prompt.
To make the expectations explicit?
Exactly. So for that shopping prompt, they'd add something like, please explicitly state whether each recommendation meets each requirement. Include source links and prices.
So you're preventing the model from just giving a vague but plausible sounding answer. You're forcing it to show its work.
It totally cuts off that path for reward hacking. And the process for creating those prompts was exhaustive. It was this multi-step production line with 4 different layers of human expert review.
And when it came to grading, they used an LM judge.
Yep, Gemini 2.5 Pro, but with the settings cranked for rigor. Thinking set to high, temperature set to 0. You want the judge to be as deterministic as possible.
The amount of data they collected is pretty substantial, too.
It is. 8 runs for every prompt and model combo. That's 32,000 responses in total, leading to over 220,000 gradings. But here's the stat that I think our audience will find really telling. The mean standard deviation across those 8 runs for the same prompt was 16.4%.
16? Wow, 16.4% is massive for the same prompt 8 times in a row.
It's huge. That level of volatility shows you just how precarious model reliability is. As a consumer, you can't rely on a tool where the quality of the answer swings that wildly from one attempt to the next. That finding alone really justifies this whole benchmark.
And I guess that volatility is why the grading system has to be so unforgiving. Let's talk about that, starting with the hurdle criteria.
Right. The hurdle is the absolute core of the task. It's a pass-fail gate.
So if the prompt is, how do I fix a leaky faucet? The hurdle is,
provide instructions to fix the faucet. And if the model gives you, I don't know, a cake recipe instead,
the score is 0 for the whole thing.
Instantly 0%. No partial credit.
Okay, so once a model clears that hurdle, the scoring changes depending on the domain.
It does. For DIY and food, it's pretty straightforward. It's additive. You meet a criterion, you get a +1 point. These domains are mostly about internal knowledge, so the lowest you can score is 0.
But the real innovation, the part that sets ACE apart, is in gaming and shopping, because those domains need external, real-time data.
And that's where the 3-step grounding check kicks in. Step 1, does the response even try to meet the criterion? If no, it's a 0. Step 2, is grounding needed? If not, okay, you get a +1.
But step 3 is where the hammer falls.
Step 3 is the hammer. If grounding is required, the model's claim is checked against the web source it used. If it's grounded, great, +1. But if it's not grounded, if the price is wrong, the link is dead, the product doesn't exist.
That's a confirmed hallucination.
And it gets a -1 penalty.
That is just brutal rigor. And you see a ton of these checks in shopping and gaming, right?
A ton. 74% of criteria in shopping and 42% in gaming require grounding, which means, unlike the other domains, your scores here can actually go negative, all the way down to -100%, theoretically.
It's like a fact checker with a zero-tolerance policy for lying.
It forces the models into a new strategy.
Yeah.
If you don't know it for sure and you can't prove it, you'd better not say it. It's a fundamental shift from being a conversationalist to being a reliable tool.
So let's look at the leaderboard. How did today's top models actually do?
Well, looking at the main held-out set, you see this tight little cluster at the top, but the scores are, well, they're mediocre. GPT-5 High is in the lead at 56.1%.
Just barely a passing grade.
Barely. And right behind it are O3 Pro and GPT 5.1, both around 55%. They're all sort of clumped together. But then there's this steep drop-off to the lower-performing models.
Gemini 2.5 Pro was down around 30%, I think.
Yeah, which just highlights this huge performance gap between models we all think of as being frontier.
The really telling story, though, is in the breakdown by domain. That's where you see the consumer experience really start to fracture.
Completely. Food is the clear winner, the easiest category. GPT-5 hit 70.1% there. And, that makes sense. Recipes, ingredients.
Yeah.
That's all based on a huge, stable knowledge base.
But the second you need that real-time external check,
the complexity just explodes. Shopping is the hardest domain by a mile. The top score there, from O3 Pro, was only 45.4%.
So to put that in context for you listening, if you use the very best AI for shopping help, it's going to fail more often than it succeeds.
That's the bottom line. And that 25-point gap between the best food score and the best shopping score tells you everything you need to know about where LLMs are failing today. It's handling grounded, real-time facts like prices and availability.
And it's important to remember the setup here. To get even these, frankly, pretty average scores, the models had to be running at maximum capacity.
Full commitment. Web search-enabled thinking modes set to higher on maximum budgets.
Which raises a really interesting economic question. If you need the most expensive, resource-heavy configuration just to get to a 56% reliability score, is deploying truly reliable consumer AI even profitable for these companies right now?
It seems like accuracy comes at a very high computational cost.
Let's dig into that hallucination effect a bit more. The analysis on grounding is fascinating. It basically compares how well a model does on grounded criteria versus everything else.
And it reveals which models are just trying to fake it till they make it.
And Gemini 3 Pro was the poster child for that, right?
It was the least grounded by far. It only passed 38% of its grounding checks. And its score dropped by a staggering 27.6 percentage points when you only looked at the grounded criteria.
So that strongly suggests it's just making things up to sound helpful. It's prioritizing fluency over facts.
It's a classic hallucination pattern. On the flip side, you had models like GPT 5.1 that were much more grounded, passing over 70% of checks. And interestingly, the Opus models actually had a net positive difference.
Meaning they were better at grounding than other things.
It suggests they're relatively more adept at validating their information than they are at, say, meeting all the general prompt rules.
If we look at the specific criteria where models are failing, where are they losing all those negative points?
Well, they're great at the simple, stable stuff. Things like provide step-by-step instructions or meets quantity requirement. They're scoring in the 80s or 90s.
The problem is the grounded requirements.
Overwhelmingly, the absolute killer criteria are meeting pricing requirements and provides links. For the pricing one in shopping, some top-tier models scored negatively. Gemini 3 Pro hit negative 28%.
Because if that price is fake or the link is broken, it's an immediate -1 penalty. It's designed to mirror that frustration you feel as a user when you click a dead link.
And you have to remember how strict it is. If you ask for 3 product recommendations, all 3 links have to work and be accurate. If just one is hallucinated, the model gets a -1 for the whole criterion.
It's basically applying commercial-grade quality control to these models.
Precisely. And beyond grounded facts, they also struggled with more subtle, conceptual things. In DIY, they often fail to recommend consulting a professional for, high-risk jobs. And in gaming, they'd fail on compatibility, recommending a graphics card that literally doesn't fit the computer build.
So what are the broader implications here? I mean, these results really seem to validate why consumers are still so hesitant.
They align perfectly with public concerns about trust and accuracy. The paper mentions that even the most enthusiastic AI adopters, they still want a human to check the work before they, say, make a purchase. This performance gap totally explains that.
And they did check the stability of the benchmark itself, comparing the hidden set to the open source one.
They did, and the rankings were very stable. No model moved more than 2 ranks, which tells you the benchmark is consistent.
Of course, they're also very transparent about the limitations.
Yeah, which is great to see. They acknowledge potential measurement errors because, well, the web is messy. Scraping information from e-commerce sites and Reddit threads and YouTube transcripts, you're going to have some small errors.
And then there's the contamination risk.
A classic problem in benchmarking. By open sourcing everything, you risk models just training specifically to beat your test without actually getting better in a general sense.
And what about future work? Where does ACE go from here?
They have big plans. They want to expand into other high-value areas like consumer finance and travel. Plus, adding more modalities beyond just text queries, images, audio, video.
A key limitation they pointed out, which I thought was really insightful, was about the prompts being static.
Right. The current personas are explicit. You get all the info up front. But real interactions are multi-turn conversations where you slowly reveal what you want. Future versions of ACE need to capture that more realistic dynamic back and forth.
And finally, the benchmark itself is on a clock.
It is. The web changes constantly. Prices, links, product availability, all of it.
Yeah.
So this isn't a one-and-done thing. It has to be constantly refreshed and rerun to stay relevant.
So wrapping this all up, ACE has set a new, very high bar for consumer AI by basically punishing hallucinations. And the research shows pretty clearly that we have models that are great at talking, but pretty terrible at acting, especially when your money's on the line.
That 56.1% top score is the number that should stick with everyone. And that was achieved with the clearest possible instructions and maxing out the model's budget and thinking time. So the question that leaves you with is this. Given that a huge area like shopping is struggling below 50%, does the need to run these models in their most expensive configuration just to get a barely passing grade mean that delivering truly reliable consumer AI is, for now, just too resource-intensive to be profitable? It seems like until that core reliability score goes way, way up, consumers are right to keep their hands on the wheel for any decision that really matters.